Good afternoon, fellow citizens. Welcome to the Citizens Chat Show. My name is Masesa Demaino, and we are here again for yet another episode that I would want you to be part of. Just to take you back, we've been having the challenge of the lockdown, of course, and the biggest sector to date that has been affected is the education system in Uganda. And we want to bring the focus today and try to see what is the fate of the education in Uganda amidst COVID-19. And that is the discussion we want to have. Joined on the panel is a list of course, my panelists are well into the sector, and I would want to invite them on board. To begin with, I want to start from my far right is Dr. Ojambo. Welcome. Dr. Ojambo is the head of history and political sciences at Kyambogo University. Yes. Yeah, you're welcome, Doctor. And this is, I think, one of your second or third time.
This is the third time I'm on this panel.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And followed by Sarah Bireete, our regular panelist. She's the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Then we have Dr. Denis Musinguzi. He's a lecturer at Nkozi University, Uganda Martyrs University in Nkozi. And you're welcome. It's your first time here.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be around and glad to be part of the team.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe let me start with Dr. Jambo. Today, learners are facing severe challenges of, for example, accessing and completing basic assignments today in their systems as we are operating today in the lockdown. And the lockdown is, of course, persistent. What is the government's plan for the education sector?
Yeah, thank you so much, Damian. In your introductory statements, you said that the system has been so much affected. Maybe we need to first give it a perspective. Before COVID, that is the time pre-18th of March 2020. If you looked at the education sector, what would you say? It was already having issues in a number of ways. The education sector is one of the underfunded sector, though on the budget chart it's number 2. But when you look at what it does and what it gets, they don't balance. The infrastructure is poor. For learning to take place, there are 3 things. There is the learner, the environment, which includes schools and what have you, and what the learner is learning. Of course, the teacher is normally just a facilitator for learning to take place. Was that okay before COVID? No, there was already a problem. Most of our rural schools, they have a semblance of education. Children go to school, but you are not very, very sure whether they learn because the 3 are not fine. If the learner is okay, the environment is problematic. If the curriculum is okay, the curriculum cannot meet the learner's expectations. So that has been one problem. But the other problem has been how the system is supervised. In fact, if there is anything that is moving like a car without a driver, is the education system in Uganda. It's like you find a car on the road, but it has no driver. You can imagine that kind of car. The inspectorate collapsed. The leaders that are supposed to be doing certain things, they are absent, they are sleeping on job. The Uganda curriculum, the National Curriculum Development Center, what they know is to print books. The standard agency is there, huge office in Kyambogo there, but what it does, no one is very, very sure. So what has been keeping education therefore? UNEB. The only functioning sector of education from senior 6 to primary is UNEB. So teachers or schools have accustomed themselves to fulfilling UNEB requirements of getting grades. You cannot call that education. That is something else. Let's go a little bit to universities or tertiary institutions. So tertiary institutions have now been put in a situation where they are producing degrees. And yet degree is supposed to be just a name of something. So we are emphasizing a name than the person. The person should have been the education that somebody gets out of the tertiary institution, from a college, from an institute, from a university. But now people ask you, they don't ask you, what did you learn at the university? Which degree do you have? So you mentioned the degree. We have a number of universities in Uganda, but should that tell us that then higher education is pub? The difference between a university in Uganda and a secondary school is maybe the age group of the people who are there. In the other one you find young people, this one you find adults. But if you look at the infrastructure, if you look at the equipment, if you look at the necessary things that make a university to be, we had a problem. But how were we faring in the region? We are faring somehow well, because you have disorganized neighbors. So if you are being compared to Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Southern Sudan, really you have to be the best. It's like me being compared with the Pygmies. I am taken among the Pygmies and they are looking for a tall person. I will be very tall. But if you go to really people who are of their normal height, I am really not a very tall person. So that's how our system has been. So somebody may ask me a question. How then do you say that this thing had all these problems? But people are coming from Tanzania, people are coming from Rwanda, and these other places. They are running away from a worse system to the worst. I mean, from a worst system to the worst. So that was how COVID got us. Now, when COVID comes, you can imagine it's like a sick person who is attacked by diarrhea. There are very, very high chances that that person is going to die. Because the person's immune system is already low, he doesn't have energy, then he's dehydrated by diarrhea. You just die. So if we are not careful, that's where our education system is going. It is at the blink of dying. So such a system has a lot of challenges. Of course, you remember when COVID came, there were a lot of innovations that came up. The first innovation was that National Curriculum Development Center is going to prepare learning material. And this material is going to be sent to schools, for schools, universities and others, no. And that business began. By bad luck, I was involved. I was involved. At first, really, I put in a lot of my energy. I thought it was a serious thing. We were taken to National Curriculum Development Center there. 3 weeks we are there. We made material. I even recorded lessons, both on audio and video. I tried to check this information so that I can for secondary schools, for the subjects of history and history. You know now, like the syllabus for S1, they are combined, history and political studies. Then history. You know, our colleagues who are in S2 and above do not study political studies these days, like we used to do. But now they have combined them in the new curriculum. These ones who are in S1 were the pioneers of the new curriculum. So that was recorded. The reports we had is that this material did not reach the learner. because they were taking them to the sub-county. Then you are supposed to go and photocopy from there. And you can imagine a photocopier in Palabek. Palabek is a village in northern Uganda. So that collapsed. The second speech the president came, he promised that students were going to learn on radio. And because of, the first idea was TV. And they did a survey of TVs in Uganda. Unfortunately, the number was very small and was restricted.
He announced it before the survey.
Yeah, the survey was, the announcement was in the famous presidential speeches, COVID speeches. But later there, the implementers had to do a survey to find out these TV lessons, can they be carried out? So they found out that this is the disconnection between UBOS, planning unit, and the State House, I think. So, and for me, I'm just saying the way it was said. So, for us historians, we don't change stories. We give it the way it was. If you find a man was squatting, you say he was squatting. You don't say he was standing low. No. It was agreed that no, TV is not possible. We are going to use radio. Another huge surprise. No. They did a survey. How many radios do we have in Uganda? And they found out, you can't believe, that in the whole of this country, in the 21st century, only 31% had radio. Of any type, a radio which you can tune on and listen to news. And the majority of them were in urban centers. So the president said they were going to give out radios to all households. They did not give individual, they were giving households. So they counted around 300,000 households which were supposed to get TV radios, which had children who are going to school. So these radios were supposed to be imported. The money was even approved in Parliament. But Parliament said, wait, where are we going to buy these radios from? So there were two options. One, to import them. But very quick they took to government some investor, and he was doing his work in Namamve. The investor was supposed to bring radios. Some very good MPs said, no, before this man is given a deal, can we go to the factory and see whether the man is making radios? When they went there, they found in his warehouse 2 radios. And they asked him, where did the radios come from? The Muindi was, I didn't know. He said, I imported them. So that deal collapsed. So that radio education also died. The third wave innovation was now studying online. But as they were studying online, some TVs were giving some lessons supported by the Ministry of Education. I was shocked. It was a few TVs, the government-owned TVs, and a few. So they would give a lesson today of biology, in the evening of physics, the other day, and the topics were really jumbled. You were not even following a certain syllabus. This man comes, teaches English, another one comes. So I think the educators also learned that was not helping, because there is no way it was helping. Because learning, you move step by step. So it's not a matter of... So online learning came, and that is what the universities took up. The leader in that was UCU and Makerere University. The one of UCU, I did not analyze it a lot because I did not have interest in it. I tried to analyze the one of Makerere University, and I discovered that it was a hoax. It was a hoax because there was no system. You know, for us who work in the university, for you to able do your work, there are 3 things that you must have. First of all, the curricula. You must have the curricula. 2, that curricula must fit in a timetable. Now, the timetable explains a lot of things. A timetable explains the time, what is going to be learned, who is the facilitator, where, when, and so many things. Now, online teaching that I've been seeing does not fit in that. It's just online teaching. You connect with your students, you teach them the time you want. So that
There was no timetable.
no. So for me, that one I don't call it learning. You are just interacting with your students. Learning must be organized in the way I've told you, that there must be a timetable which describes the curricula, it describes who facilitates, at what time, where, and which day. So that one went on, and Makerere did exams. But later, I liked the explanation. The explanation was that by the time of the lockdown, the semester had gone 3 quarters. So in my imagination, any clever lecturer would have just examined from topic 1 to 3 quarters. So majority of them must have examined that, because in a university, if you examine things that learners did not study, you are in trouble, because they know what they're supposed to study. So other universities grappled with it, and we failed. So then we opened the first phase. So for us, like in my university where I come from, we dealt with the third years first. They came and we did a crash program. They did exam. When they finished, the second years, or the continuing students also came. Unfortunately for them, as we were still continuing towards the end, we were remaining with about 2 weeks, the second wave came in, and that's where we stopped. So the situation here, I'm sorry for giving you that long background, but I wanted to give the viewers and the listeners a perspective of how things are from P1 up to the highest level. So to answer your question now, after that long perspective, is that everything is at the standstill. Somebody who comes and is an educator. The good thing, I am a teacher, trained teacher. I'm a trained teacher, and I've been participating in this work for the last 20 years. So learning has not been taking place. But some people are engaging their students to be busy. For example, if you find a P2 kid or a P3 or a kindergarten kid learning on a computer at home, and you think that young man or woman is going through education, you are deceived. What they are doing is just to engage them. All of you have been in P2, in P1, in nursery. For those who are lucky, me, I didn't study nursery. Learning there is more broader than somebody spelling for you words. In fact, what we benefit from schools is not the spellings, but the interactions we have with our teacher, with our fellow students. That's why in P1, there is no way you can teach for 2 hours without jumping up and dancing, because the concentration is too low. So what we have been doing is to engage our students to keep busy, but learning is not possible in these circumstances.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for giving us that broad perspective. And in there, I've realized I need to turn to Dr. Musinguzi. And earlier on, we had a conversation, and you said you've been engaging into classes, and Doctor says no, that was really an interaction, not really serious studying. But we are talking about the government's plan. What is your perspective in this line?
My perspective in this line is that education sector has been given a low deal when it comes to planning and COVID response. It is almost entirely neglected. I wonder a minister in charge of education sleeping comfortably in their bed, knowing that kids have not been to school for the last 2 years, and they are there just in their homes. It is a sector that must be thought about immediately and opportunities put in place to make sure that it functions. We had a revolution which matured in 1986. COVID had given us an opportunity for another revolution, especially when it comes to introducing technology in the learning space. technology has its own challenges, but to give it a context, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. There was the revolution of the steam engine and the agricultural revolution. There was the revolution of the coal and the industries and great productivity. There was a revolution of computers. Now we are into where we are in massive production in the fourth industrial revolution. Unfortunately, Africa as a continent has lost on all these three revolutions. And the moment we lose out on this fourth industrial revolution, we are digging ourselves into the grave, because we are missing out on the dividends of these revolutions. Now, to speak about the context of my university and learning, Uganda Martyrs University offers distance education for about 20 years now. And already we had a conversation 10 years ago about how to begin digitalizing the education space, so that if someone is in Karamoja, if someone is in West Nile, at one moment, we can interact with them when they are not physically available on the university. So as early as 2014, we already installed a Moodle which could be tailored for an online learning management system. But as my colleague said, studying online requires a lot of input in terms of infrastructure, in terms of connectivity, in terms of gadgets. So at that time, the university was not ready to offer, purely online education. And we did not have any direct policy in terms of digitalizing the space. But, we kept asking ourselves, how do we make education accessible to the people who are studying from a distance, and we interact with them more closely? So then we started putting in place, various ways. Say, for example, you teach with slides. We're asking ourselves, how do you make slides interactive? Not just a slide with a lot of information, but you can put a lot of information, then insert audio notes where you are explaining, and then give references, so that was clearly at the lowest level of beginning to revolutionize. Now the question was, how are we able to create digital content as lecturers who are teaching? So as early as 2015, 2016, we had already started that kind of conversation. And of course, another wave that came in was the public, taken collectively to include the public sector, the private sector, even the civil society. We are complaining that universities are producing graduates who do not only lack entrepreneurship skills for making jobs, but who even lack basic skills that one would be employed. So they don't have employable skills, and they cannot employ themselves. So then we started asking ourselves, how do we best get out of this? Then we said there should be a problem with regard to what we teach and how we teach it. What we teach, as he said, it is curriculum. How we teach it is pedagogy. Pedagogy is part of the curriculum, but we are looking at it separately. How do we deliver the content that we are giving? Especially given that we have full-time students with whom we interact closely on a daily basis. We have weekend students who study only 2 weeks, and 2 days in a week, and they need a lot of follow-up. And then we have distance learning students who only come for 2 weeks when you are giving face-to-face, and they are going back to their communities. So the question was, how do we keep in touch with them? And the answer was always digital. So in terms of now revolutionizing the curriculum, then we said, if it is curriculum, then we need to innovate it. If it is even pedagogy, we need to use the approaches that are going to facilitate the learning, which my brother, is talking about. But because there were complaints, then we had to ask ourselves, what kind of skills and competencies do we need to put into our learners? And we went to the 21st century and the 21st century skills, whether it is critical thinking or creativity, innovation, and the component of information and technology. Then, for us, introducing learning using technology was even an opportunity, to introduce students into the digital space so that beyond the teaching and learning, they can also navigate beyond that. So we started now integrating technology into the teaching and learning. But as I've said, it was still at the faculty level and largely at the individual level. The opportunity that we had in 2018, we received the calls for applications to innovate the teaching and learning space at the university level. These are big projects funded by DFID. Under CFIA. CFIA is Strategic Partnership for Higher Education, Innovation and Reform, based in the UK. So they set out calls for universities which are doing innovation. And because we are already into the innovation, we were lucky. We were in 2 projects which were innovating the space at the university level. And the first one, we called it Transforming Employability for Social Change in East Africa. How do we embed skills that enable students to be creative, to own the knowledge, to begin to think about themselves and how to make education that they have acquired very useful. And the second one was pedagogical leadership. And it was introducing innovations within the teaching and learning. So the advantage that in that is that we had a full component on technology-enhanced learning. So if we are to do technology-enhanced learning, it means you have to move away from the traditional approach of, teacher-student into embedding a lot of technological approach. So we said...
So this is working for you.
And it has been working. It has been working for us. So by the time the COVID came in, more than half of our staff members had already been trained to do and manage online education. We already had the module. It was not yet fully developed into a fully fledged online management system, but Moodle gave us the opportunity. The COVID gave us the opportunity. Immediately, the people came in, they tailored it into the learning, and what he's talking about now, you can interact with the students. So, in the technology language, there is the synchronous and the asynchronous, where you are engaging the students directly and where you are giving them reading materials and references and other things for learning. So because of that, when the first lockdown came in, there was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know when we were going to open. So that was March. April, May, we were not doing anything. But around June, July, we said no. Since the semester was already 3 quarters, we can complete the semester. And we can engage students in different ways. So by June and July, we rolled out the finalists and the students completed. Now the issue was the new academic year and the continuing students. And that is the time when the National Council for Higher Education was coming in and saying, okay, universities can begin using online system, ODEL. So when they came in and looked at the innovations that the university had done, in fact, were among the first universities that were allowed to do online education, even offering online examinations. Even the recent communication about online examination was not affecting us because we had been authorized because of the progress that we had already made. So in terms of progress, we received first years in September 2020. Online. We gave them 3 weeks of orientation on how to teach and learn online. 3 weeks of, intensive orientation. Of course, many students did not adapt, but those who adapted, they studied online. Fortunately, around March, April this year, there was a window of allowing students to physically come to the university. And for us, the opportunity was given to first years because they had not been physically at the university. They have been interacting online. So we said, no, let them come, interact with the lecturers. And so that gave us a window. And indeed, they came, they complemented the online with the physical engagement with the lecturers, and they were able to do examinations without...
Did you do catch up for those who did not adapt?
Yes, now that is where the challenge has been. Normally, as a university, we go, through the first semester and the second semester, then we make the assessment. Of course, at the end of the first semester, it is true some students had not been enrolled through online. Even those who were enrolled, some had some few issues. We have not done the catch-up, and I think that is the area where we really need to think quite aggressively, because we did not. Now they have done the second semester, they have completed their examinations for the academic year. Even the continuing students have also been progressing. There have been issues and challenges, but we are grappling with them slowly. When he was talking about learning, as I told you, for us, we managed learning using the both approaches, the synchronous and the asynchronous, where I can interact with students on Zoom when we are seeing face-to-face. But in the project that I talked about, we had also talked about innovative teaching and innovative assessment. We are moving away from the traditional approach of, the teacher knows, imparts the knowledge to the student, you give examination to assess how much they have learned. That is good. It is assessment of learning. You are assessing whether learning has taken place or not. We are saying now we are moving into assessment for learning, meaning even when you are giving an assessment, you are giving an opportunity for someone to learn. So I will give examination. If I'm teaching human rights, I say, think of a government department or a civil society organization like this. Go there, think of one project, ask what they are doing and how they are doing it, make an assessment, talk about the contribution they are giving, and as a student, how would you improve if you are in that space? And that is the examination that I've given. And I will give you even 2 weeks or even a month to do that.
Interesting. We'll get back there and engage deeply on these issues. Okay. Sarah, you realize there are two contradicting situations here. No, one coming from a private approach. This is from a private institution, then from the government institution. But now we are trying to harmonize. Is this why the government is really taking long to decide, because of how to harmonize these two?
No. When a strong wind comes to your house and lifts the walls, it gives an opportunity for the whole neighborhood to see what is inside your house. So whatever. I think what is happening is that COVID has undressed the nations. Strong nations are able to survive and mitigate COVID, but weak nations are grappling with the challenges of COVID. For our education sector, I think everyone, including a child in nursery schools, have realized that we don't have leadership in the education sector. I know the technocrats have tried to talk and advise that you cannot indefinitely close education institutions, but the mindset of the political leadership is in the opposite direction. Also, the challenge maybe we could be facing is the effects of elderly leadership in a digital era. I think they have failed to cope. I think really they have failed to cope, and they need to step aside for younger blood. Because UNICEF has done a study in adaptation for education sector in 142 countries, from pre-learning level up to university level. And one of the findings of the study was that closing pre-primary, these are nursery schools, closing nursery schools under the first phase of lockdown cost the learners of nursery schools $1.2 trillion in their future earnings. That was the lockdown that lasted 8 months. Now for us, we are talking of 2 years. So you can make the calculation of how the future generations are making losses because of the failure or incapacity of the leaders to make the right decisions. How did we arrive at the second lockdown? Because schools are on the spot for having been the super spreaders of COVID. The manner in which, they were harboring COVID in schools, the way the administration behaved, and the manner in which schools were closed. But what gaps manifest in that mess or shabbiness that was witnessed? First, you see the failure of the inspectorate of schools. Of course, first is the hypocrisy of school leadership. Because how do you keep sick children at school without informing their parents of a deadly pandemic, without informing their parents, without giving them proper treatment? And you are just watching. So first is that dishonesty of school administrators that really did that. Of course, not all schools did that. Then the failure of the inspection of schools. And then the failure of surveillance teams by Ministry of Health. And what planning existed for reopening of schools? I wish I could know that. As much as everybody was scared in the first phase and a lot of things, including the off-learning that Dr. Ojambo talked about very well, the TV, they failed, the radios, all the programs collapsed. And that is, amidst the $15 million grant World Bank gave the Ministry of Education to mitigate, make sure running continues amidst COVID. And the only result that is there are the printing materials. I am a parent of teenagers. I never saw the running materials. I only see bits of them in New Vision, the ones that are circulated in New Vision and Bukede. I don't know whether they reached. I have dependents I pay for in the countryside. They've never received the running materials. So I don't know really who received them. And I don't know whether there is accountability for that 15 million.
I'm not very, very sure
whether you were paid.
I'm not sure.
Imagine. So does the Ministry of Education have accountability for that World Bank money that was given in addition to budget allocations by our parents, by our parliament? So that failed. Then the way we opened schools without measures for possible outbreak of COVID. Our government reached a stage and wished COVID away. And that's how we found ourselves in the second wave. So what were the measures for possible outbreak of COVID in schools before they were reopened? I don't know what the task force put in place. And obviously whatever they put in place did not work. Because we saw how the children spread COVID countrywide. And the second wave was escalated by children from schools. But does that justify the lack of planning now and the indefinite closure of schools by our leadership? I do not think so. If you look at the mitigation measures other countries have done, it's important to note that, first of all, in East Africa, Uganda is the only country where learners are at home indefinitely because of COVID. Schools are open in Rwanda, schools are open in Kenya, schools are open in Burundi, schools are open in Tanzania.
In Tanzania, they never close.
Yes, all from nursery. So in the region, other learners are continuing to learn. And they are not disrupted by COVID. So even at the East African level, we cannot catch up in terms of education disruptions. And it would be important to know whether the policymakers at our ministry have interested themselves to know how, for example, schools have kept open in Kenya. We know Kenya has high COVID infections than Uganda. Because the whole country is open, there is no sector which is under lockdown in Kenya. So when you look at their daily rates, which are about 500 per day, our daily rates of infection are about 250. So as much as their daily rates double our rates, the country is fully open, including bars and swimming. Yes, it is open.
True. There is only a curfew at night.
There is only a curfew at 10 p.m. But all sectors are open. So for us, we are operating almost at half-day work, because if you have to meet curfew at 5, you must leave office at 3 or 4. So half-day work, half sectors closed, entertainment industry closed, bars closed, churches closed, schools closed. So you have half of our sectors closed. Weddings, seminars, suspended, etc. Then, you can't say, I don't know whether we can say overall that we are doing better than our neighbors. Secondly, you cannot fight a pandemic through lockdown. That would be akin to saying that you are preventing maternal and infant mortality rates through sterilizing women. Yes, because no woman can get pregnant. Then you do not have children dying or women dying during birth. So you suspend pregnancy. I think that's what an extended lockdown would really mean.
That would be the end of the world.
Because if we are fighting COVID, we should be able to live our lives and live with COVID. Until we achieve that, then we are still failing to manage the pandemic. Because lockdown should be a temporary measure and not permanent on any sector. So until we are in this situation, we should know that as a country we are not yet successful at mitigating the effects of COVID pandemic.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I know there are some responses you need to pick from what Dr. Musinguzi said in line with how you're approaching. And of course, there are some that Sarah has talked about, including the generation. But I want to say, how are the schools reopening dilemma? How can it be fixed at this point?
Yeah, before I answer that one, let me say two things about what they have said. The first is my colleague and the Nkozi experience. Online teaching has been here for some time. I interacted with the online teaching in 2010. I had something I was doing with the University of Western Cape. Perfect type of learning, and you would feel like you were there with whoever you were interacting with. At that time, we didn't have Zoom, we had Skype. We were using Skype. I tend to, I want my colleague there to go slow, because you see, for me, I am a political economist. This is Zoom thing and these other good things which have all of a sudden come. We need to look at them with some carefulness. And therefore, that's why I tend to even think that COVID is a socio-political problem. It has affected the third world, as she said, more than any other places, and that is its intention. These people who had failed to adapt digital, to adapt these things, how can you force them there? You can imagine how much money telecom companies are making from poor people. I have children at home, and they're in these schools where they insist. The first lockdown, I refused. But sometimes you don't want your children to get frustrated. So you say, okay, join, but you know it's a useless thing. You cannot spend less than 50,000 per week buying data. No. Not less than 50.
With moreover taxes.
Now,
in a
you
pandemic.
can imagine Ugandans, how many Ugandans can afford 50,000? So his thing is very good, and really I congratulate you for reaching that level. It's like buying a Mercedes Benz in my village, Maweito. I have a Mercedes Benz, I park it there. And I say, anybody who wants to drive a Mercedes Benz, just come, I'll give it to you, and you maintain it. Do you want to guess that there are even people who will come to that level? Because a Mercedes Benz, when you put the key like this, that's 50,000. If you you ignite it on, it must have some 50,000. As you are driving it, it's telling you, please, can you fuel? And you are putting 50. It's telling you, can you fuel? So what he's saying is a very good thing, and that's what I talked about. I said that for learning to take place, there must be prior planning. And you can see these people planned, only that they had not put it in program. So they use the opportunity and fix their COVID problem like that. But he has also confessed that there are those who are left behind. And, for us, at our level, we call ourselves scientists. We don't lie, and I really appreciate his view that he told you what they have, how good it is, and the challenges it has. So he's acknowledging that there is a problem. I don't want to talk about the demography of our students in this country on this show. Background. If you look at their background, if you went and checked each student's background, you may get surprised what type of students we have. In the university where I teach, sometimes you want to get to a level of forming an NGO to help students to do exams. They have not paid. And what is the tuition? 640,000 per semester. They have not paid. So when you put in these other things, you have to think twice. So what she said, in my view, and this one I've said it on various fora, it was a huge mistake for government to close schools in the first lockdown, especially boarding schools. Somebody asked me, but you wanted boarding schools to continue learning and the others, but that segregation is already there. You can't tell me I studied in a day school from P1 to senior 6. I didn't get the advantages that my friends got. I started with somebody in O-level. We got the same marks. I can now announce them because they were not bad. 20 aggregates. That's what I got in O-level. He went to a boarding school. I remained in the day school. That person did medicine. He's a doctor. Me, I did teaching, which is degraded in this country. I'm a teacher. So, those demographic differences are a big problem. Our country is a country of poor people. Very poor. So, when you come up with these systems, I think in their project, they must have seen how they can cater for these ones. You must put in even a rider that you will support the student to be on the program. So that is one. But what they're doing is very good. I think we shall learn from them. Then she talked about...
because looking at how much the population...
But also Nkozi is not a university of poor.
I didn't want to go there.
Yes,
I didn't want to go there.
I know.
I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go there because
I know,
that
but
university
for
is
me
wonderful.
I know, but I can say it.
I didn't want to go there. So, and he's told you that they were funded, DFID and so many of those things.
Yes.
So really that is a good thing and we shall learn from them. By the way, we interact a lot with the Nkozi. We are doing so many things together. I want to really emphasize that it was a huge mistake to close at the first time. And that's what we are talking about. We are not data-informed decision makers. We make decisions as big men and women. What we think. Me, I think. So you think. They're already showing you that COVID does not affect young people the way it affects the elderly. So what I would have done, I would have kept teachers in their schools. Let them be there. And the way they have kept other people, if it is constructing tents, they stay there. And they finish their S1, S2. Can imagine S1 had joined, I think, and started 1 week. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
The third week.
So those ones would have remained there. Then, the other mistake we made, how do you take back children to school without establishing their status? They were testing here. You remember that testing which was even following drivers wherever they are. What happened to it? As she said, they went to sleep. So all the children should have been tested before they went back to school. That's what I expected. Then when they reach there, there was supposed to be a surveillance team. Each school was supposed to form a committee which makes sure that they do surveillance, and this whatever is gotten is reported and handled in that level, and where there is need for referral, you make referral. They took children with the COVID to teachers. Teachers are not doctors. So you are blaming them. There is a problem with the business, especially profit-making businesses. They don't want to tell you their disadvantages. Because you can imagine if teachers had a problem and announced that there was COVID in Namagunga, you would have seen the stampede.
Of course.
The stampede. And that would cause a lot of problems. So I think the teachers, the head teachers, were also confused on what to do. Because there's no system. I was asking at Kyambogo University, sometimes, when you say these things, people they think you are joking. There were a lot of confusion. They tell you a student has COVID. You are not a doctor. You don't have any ambulance.
Who do they test?
I'm telling you, you don't have an ambulance. So what you would do, you would quietly tell the student, can you please go back home and come back with results? But it's going through public means. You don't have an ambulance. The testing centers, after that opening, collapsed. So Makerere and a few remained there. So it was very, very difficult to deal with that problem. So my view is, where did the rain start beating us? I think the rain started beating us. The rain started beating us from the day we became... Uganda is a laissez-faire country. From the time we started imagining that government belongs to so-and-so, those people are the ones in power. For me, there is nothing that I can do. That's where we are. I've been telling my students that if apartheid was in Uganda, it would be, they would even wish to export it elsewhere. Ugandans would be the ones saying apartheid is a very good thing. After all, they are constructing very good houses. They are very good. So we are very irresponsible. Forgive me for doing that, for saying that. Ugandans are very irresponsible people. For example, you have seen all these things are happening. What are the parents saying? Are they all in jail and they have been jailed? What are they saying? What are the teachers saying? What happened to UNATU? What is UNATU saying? What are the lecturers and the professors' associations saying about this? They are waiting that a politician who goes there because he has senior 6 is going to decide for them when they are the experts of these things. Because let me tell you, government is like a gearbox. Government responds to the gear that you put in. If you put in gear 5, gear 5 is the weakest. We normally put it when you are on a slope, call it ndobo. We need people to engage gear 1. Gear 1. And you get what you deserve. In me, I normally tell people that you get what you deserve. You get what you fight for, not what you deserve. If you are waiting to get what you deserve, you are in big trouble. That's why you see teachers are where they are. And I normally give an example of the Uganda cranes. If you have seen the Uganda cranes, I don't know whether there are very many people who can doubt that it's one of the most beautiful birds. The crested cranes. Where does it stay? In the bush.
And it's that.
Where does a duck stay? A duck. If you have seen a duck, they stay in homes. They are looked after. So which one is more important? Crested crane or a duck? A duck, isn't it? So Ugandans are like the crested crane, which does not know its worth. Because if a crested crane came to my home and landed there, you would pray that it enters the house so that you keep it there. But it doesn't know. It doesn't know the worth it has. So Ugandans are like that. So the first thing that we need to do to rejuvenate our education system, we must...
If you gave a crested crane good food, would it eat it?
I don't
It
know.
would go back to the soil.
I don't know. So we need first of all to advocate. And for me, I've started that advocacy. Government, we are willing to die. You open schools so that we die. Because we feel it is not good to be here living ignorantly. I have a boy, he's 6 years. He does not like our president. Because when he sees our president on TV, he says the man has come to close schools. The boy was supposed to graduate top class. He can no longer graduate. And I have a lot of problems with him. He was wondering whether we should just organize a graduation pattern and he graduates anyway. So, as she said, even in this COVID-19, if you look at the statistics of how many people died in Uganda, and you look, you say, how many of those were children in pre-primary? I think none, unless if they can explain to us. Primary, they must be very few, and secondary, very few. University, very few. So the number goes increasing as you go high. So my view is according to our demographic structure, where more than 3/4 of our people are young, the young people are not so much affected by COVID-19. They are not as serious as 80-year-old or 90-year-old. Because what this country does not know, irrespective of the statistics, so many old people have died of COVID-19 unrecorded. So it was even dangerous for us to take young people back to the village to kill those old people. So we should open schools, but we should not open the way we opened last time. I think Minister of Education, what he should do now is to try and put in place what we are talking about. Put in place surveillance teams, put in place inspectorate teams. But the problem in Uganda, when you put in place these teams, is as if they are coming on board for the first time. They need their own budgets. I don't think they need a budget. The inspectorate already has their budget. The school teachers can be the team. You just need to get representatives. Yes. So you don't need a budget, a huge budget.
And the district health teams
yes,
can do the surveillance.
The surveillance. So that we open schools. 2, we need to quicken the immunization drive. But there is this another black elephant in our room. Today I saw people immunizing in Kyambogo. And people really want to be immunized now. At first, I was really quarreling with some people because people did not want to get immunized. Now they want. But the vaccine is not there. Let me tell you, vaccine is not more useless than AK-47. I don't think one AK-47 equals to the price of AstraZeneca vaccine. We would sacrifice whatever we have and buy these vaccines, even if it means to buy them from the black market. Because AK-47s, we buy them sometimes from the black market.
Expensive.
Yes. So we should get them. Why vaccine? Vaccine does not remove the problem, but it gives you the confidence when you are vaccinated. And the disease, for those who have studied disease philosophy, the first thing is confidence. Once you develop confidence that this disease will not affect me, there are higher chances that it will not affect you. That's why you see in these churches, they claim to be curing HIV/AIDS. But the truth is they don't cure the HIV/AIDS. When you test those people, they will be positive. But they are confident that they are cured. So that keeps them somehow. So I really feel that we need vaccination. We need vaccination. Then 3, we need to. He talked about it. We need to give education the value like we have given other sectors. When you see these budgets, these supplementary budgets that are coming up, health takes the lion's share, then followed by defense. Security. Security. So we need to now think about, we have managed the COVID to a certain time. We need now to give education the first position so that we give them. Because let me tell you, 60% of our schools in Uganda or more are private schools. They will need some injection for them to go back to where they were. So somebody must be thinking about that. This government is like an irresponsible parent. An irresponsible parent, when you come home and children don't ask you about food, you ask, have you eaten something? You say yes. He says, that is good. But you don't know who is feeding them. Maybe somebody is feeding them with monkey meat. So this government was very happy when people started the schools. They said the role of providing education has been now, they are helping us. It can no longer go on like that because there is a pandemic that has affected those schools. So those schools need to be helped. Even the government schools. For example, we should give orders that majority of our S1s now go to government schools. Because the government schools, the teachers are receiving salaries. I was shocked. Nyakasura cannot admit 70 students.
Why?
Because it has been neglected by the people who are
It's private
government. This Bukedi College, Kachonga, they were totaling students in the whole school, 170. How can that be? So somebody...
What is the problem?
The problem is that the teachers have run away from there. They only go to pick their salary, but they don't teach there because there is no inspection. I want to give you that education system in Uganda is very, very bad. Can I give you an example? Now I have in 1 minute. I have a girl who did P7 and got 6. But we are worried where she's going to study. We are very, very worried.
Yes.
6.
That one failed.
6. So, what is going to happen in these schools? A school has a capacity of 270. Let me be exact, 170. But they declare 70 to government. Government admits only 70. The other 100 are admitted private. So my daughter who got 6 may not get a place. But the son of somebody from Magere, because he's a very popular man with 13, will be admitted with a letter from father so-and-so or commissioner so-and-so will be admitted. We have already distorted the system. So for me, I would argue that all government schools should admit students to S1 according to their capacity, so that we relieve children from funny things. I move in schools, you go to Machindi, and you see where children are studying from. Even ducks cannot stay there. That would be the first solution. I'm giving this one government for free. Let Nyakasura, all these government schools, admit to their fullest capacity, so that students can start studying there as we deal with the private sector. Because the private sector, much of it has almost collapsed. Teachers have joined Boda and so many other things. Finally, I think our members of parliament, the Education Service Committee headed by Honorable Twesije from Bunyaruguru County, should up his game. he needs to put, if possible, he should write a private member's bill. Because there is no way we are going to, and people should really put pressure on the MPs. Because at least sometimes when MPs make noise, they are heard. They are heard somehow, if something is not does not involve money. We need a COVID plan of education. Because there is no way we are going to move as usual with these problems that I'm talking about. We need a plan. We need a plan on financing. We need a plan on human resource. We need a plan on infrastructure, those things that he was talking about. We need a plan to get out of this problem. If we just go as usual, Uganda, as she said, is going to lose a worthy of human resource that we can never be able to calculate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. You've taken us all through. I want to, Dr. Musinguzi, in about 1 minute, then we see how we break off for a few minutes and get back. Of course, you talked about, students getting to government schools, but of course, we had the minister saying probably the private owners should sell off part of their property to recover the loans. Now, how
that
but
was
the,
like how the health minister told the people to eat monkeys. People were struck by famine. Chibirige, Minister Chibirige.
yes,
That eat
how
monkeys.
should this reopening dilemma be handled by government?
Yes, there is the reopening dilemma. I think there was a worse dilemma when it came to closing. But as my colleague has said, I think when COVID came, our planners, our leaders in government, they either panicked or are making decisions out of fear, and they are not allowing the data to inform the decisions.
Maybe if I may interject on that one, I think I've seen the head of National Planning Authority saying they are left out.
Exactly.
In the first phase of COVID, they were completely left out of meetings.
Yeah.
The second phase, he walked in by foresight. But so, it's a leadership problem.
Yes, that is very true. Because we would be having UBOS giving us the statistics, would be having the planning, working with the doctors and working with other people, and having, a uniform plan in terms of how we are going to manage the closures and the opening. But as she said, the planning unit was not regarded as essential. COVID response at the district level is not headed by the district medical officer, it is headed by an RDC. So you see the whole process, the whole system is kind of messed. And that's why, every time we are making mistakes and we do not seem to learn in terms of moving forward. In public universities, like he said, they are still stuck in first semester of the first years.
Because I think we're allowed to do exams.
No.
We only did exams for finalists.
Oh, those who were physically present.
2019, 2020.
Yes, if I mean the example of Makerere, first years had gone through the semester.
So they are in
The day the
second
lockdown,
year,
no, in the
year
first
two of
semester.
first year.
No, they are in year 2 first year and they are still in first semester. The day this lockdown was announced was the eve of the day they were going to do examinations. They were supposed to do examinations on Monday, and instead of doing examination, they were packing their bags going home. Makerere has a capacity of more than 35,000 students. Was it not possible that first years could be given 2 weeks of doing examinations?
But
Using the procedures.
Lockdown is announced. The first lockdown, I was watching news because I think come from a television program. Yeah. So I said, let me watch the address here because I'll be in the jam. The lockdown was announced when I was here. Oh my God, you should have seen how I...
The panic.
And it was a few minutes. Because it was 9 something, I had 30 minutes to get home before engaging with LDUs.
Yes.
Yeah, for example, if they allowed those first years to do exam in 2 weeks, would the world explode?
No, it would not.
Doctor, you conclude,
So,
yes.
we would expect, that there is systematic kind of planning and allowing students especially if standard operating procedures can be followed. I'm giving that as an example. You know, you are supposed to do examinations the following day, and the following day you're packing your bags, going back home. It is now 2 months later, you are not sure when you're going to begin. She's talking about, yes, senior 1, senior 2, senior 3 have not been in school for 2 years.
Gone to school
Yes,
since March last year.
Since March last year. Even senior 5. Now there is no senior 6, there is senior 5, which is in its second year. And senior 5 students are saying we are now in senior 5 second year of like the university. Now, if there was that kind of mess, we need to structure the planning. I don't know the reason why senior 1 and senior 2, why senior 5 are not at school. Because schools can be able to manage those classes and follow the procedures. But because the sector has been neglected, I think the people...
But there is no thinking in the about the sector. Or in the sector.
Yes,
because I think really, if you can say that for institutions, let a third of workers resume, why don't you do it for schools also?
Exactly.
And say let 1 year come, handle them 1 month, they go.
Yeah.
Bring another year, handle them 1 month, they go. You know?
Yes, Damian, that is the challenge that we are having. International schools
Are
are operating.
Actually, today they released the results.
Operating
Normally, uninterrupted. And the problem is that majority policy makers and decision makers are not affected by what we are discussing because their schools are either in international schools or studying abroad.
Now let's have a short break right there. We are going to have a long discussion around here, and of course, like Doctor says, the advocates have started. They are trying to push as much as possible. So I hope out there, as the fellow citizens, follow this discussion. Throw in your comments, share your thoughts also, so that it can be added on Doctor's thoughts also, the campaign, to ensure that if we die, we die. Let's have a short break and return.
You can't even die.
The Citizens Chat Room happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Hello, welcome back from that short break. We closed on a high, and we need to see how far we can go. My name is Masesa Demiano, and still we are discussing the fate of the education in Uganda amid this pandemic, COVID-19. On my panel, of course, I have Dr. Robert Ojambo. That name confuses me. He's the head of history and political science at Kyambogo University. We also have Sarah Bireete, of course, a regular panelist, but also the executive director with the Center for Constitutional Governance. And Dr. Musinguzi, Denis, is a senior lecturer at Uganda Martyrs University, Nkozi. So maybe I need to start with you, Sarah. We ended when we were discussing an issue. We need to go a little on the policy issues. The president said that the vaccination, reopening of schools is tagged or hinged on the vaccination. Do you think this is a feasible plan? What is the plan going forward?
You know, Uganda is one of the countries that has really failed to vaccinate its population. We had earmarked an eligible category of 22 million, and this is for adults 18 years and above. For us as a country to be able to attain herd immunity against COVID pandemic, the ideal situation really would be universal immunization for all people that are eligible for immunization. I know that it's difficult to attain the required 60 to 70%, especially in developed countries that have available vaccinations, but are stuck with a group of vaccine hesitants that are aggressively campaigning against vaccines, and some of them have succumbed to COVID. I wish to, enjoin the listeners of this program not to argue with science. If scientists are saying vaccinate, don't listen to any other, People saying you will die in 2 years, you will die. We have all been living on vaccinations. Every child born in hospitals is vaccinated. And the most important thing that I wish to communicate to the people, why do you think that you're so important that scientists should sit down to develop a formula to eliminate you? What are you doing that is so important that the world should focus on killing you? Have you made any discovery that is turning trends and changing global economies? What makes you? I think really it is largely that ego of self-importance. They want to kill us. All the 90% of the things we are using, starting from Colgate, are manufactured by the same people. So if they want to kill you, why can't they kill you using Colgate? Why can't they kill you using the clothes you put on? The medicines you consume, Panadol and whatever, who made them? Who made those formulas? So why do you think that it's this vaccine that is going to kill you? How about the polio vaccine? How come they did not kill you? Measles vaccine, how come they did not kill you? Are you the one who made it? So I think really people should not listen to that propaganda. But away from that, the money set aside for vaccination in the first wave, 29 billion, discovered in thin air. And as a country, we are depending on handouts. All the vaccines that have reached this country so far are donations. We are yet to see a bunch, the first bunch of paid-up vaccine using a taxpayer's money. So I think for the president to tag opening up of schools to vaccination, when he knows the challenges, first is the challenges with corruption of his people. Second is the challenge of lack of prioritizing vaccination by his government in terms of budget allocations. And the third challenge is on bookings for vaccines. Yes, I would not mind as a citizen if Uganda got the required 1 trillion for vaccinating 22 million people and paid several companies and we wait and even show receipts and say we have paid a total of 1 trillion shillings as a country to several companies. We are expecting AstraZeneca, we are expecting Moderna, Pfizer. We have made several deposits and these are receipts. We shall announce when deliveries come. Then you can sit and address the nation that I have paid for vaccines and I will open after vaccination. But you neither have the money, you have not set it aside, you have not made the deposits to join the queue for vaccines, and you are tagging people's future to vaccination that does not exist. So I think really, to me, that is self-defeating.
Dr. Ojambo, getting back to you, earlier Sarah said that schools around the East African community have literally all opened up. And of course, you also admitted that that is possible and other sectors are operating. What are they doing differently from really to see that they are operating and for us we are still closed?
I think the first country to begin with was the Republic of Tanzania. This one treated COVID by psychological means. For them, they said that COVID will heal by prayers and people grow and people developing herd immunity. And to some extent it worked, of course, with the sacrifices. You know, sometimes certain things happen with sacrifice. And for that matter, I happen to have stayed in Dar es Salaam for close to 5 years. It's the biggest city in East Africa with the highest population. Its population is even higher than Nairobi. And the difference with it, with Nairobi, is that Nairobi is an enclosure, like Kampala, where you have these enclosed houses. Dar es Salaam is a rural city, if people can understand me. If you go to Kariakoo, their market is bigger than the city center of Kampala, Kariakoo, the market. and that place has never been closed. I have been watching TBC TV and the other TVs. I've not seen anybody drop dead or people have dropped dead on the road. So even if they are not giving us the statistics, the children have gone to the schools. They have studied as planned. For them, they didn't stop at all, and they have succeeded. In Kenya, they closed schools like us. But, in Kenya, the Minister of Education is a professor, a former Vice-Chancellor of Nairobi University, Professor Magoha. And therefore, he knows what he's doing. So they drew a plan, and he said that at first they wanted to teach online and these other things, but they discovered the rural nature would not allow. So what they did was to put in place measures in schools on how to admit students back. Where the rooms were small, they expanded schools with the tents, with so many things. Some students were regrouped to other schools to decongest them, because for them they have arranged their schools in the administrative strata. There are provincial schools, there are regional schools, there are district schools, and the local schools. So they know what to do. They have computerized everything. They have done what I have said, that schools admit according to their capacity. Because in Uganda, there are schools which have a very high capacity of admitting students, but they don't have them. They don't have the students. So at the end of the day, they operate under capacity. And students go to places which cannot be managed, but they have good advertisement. You can imagine a school like Laibi College in Gulu can admit to 500 students because they have the infrastructure, they have everything. But they don't get the students. Where do the students go and gang up? In Gulu High. Gulu High, because Gulu High has very good advertisement and so many other things, and it is a private school. So you find all the children congested there. So in Kenya, they have helped to do that, and the students are going on well, the universities are running, and everything is running.
The nursery schools,
they are all running.
Yeah.
In Rwanda, they have been on a total lockdown for 1 month. But I think before that, the students were in school. So I think the 1 month has ended.
When they opened,
they have opened and they are in school.
Of
course, I don't want to compare myself to South Sudan and Burundi. It would be very bad to start comparing yourself to those ones. So taking those three examples, I think Uganda, we don't have different blood groups from these people. In fact, in these countries, we speak the same languages. So we are people of almost the same type. Majority Bantu, and if you are not Bantu, you are a plain Nilot. For example, in Uganda, when you go to Tanzania, the whole of northern Tanzania can understand each other with Uganda. In fact, they say their prayers in Luganda. That's what surprises you, because Christianity first passed here, then went there. When you go to Kenya, the Western Kenya are all Bantu. A few are Luo. So we are the same people, same structures, same home size, same town system and everything. So I think here it is just a problem of policy, as he said. We don't run by policy. Government is run by opinions. So if somebody gives an opinion, that's what is followed. We don't run systems by policy. And unfortunately, it has even come to universities. You find you run a university according to the Vice-Chancellor's opinion. You say, but where is the policy? So the first thing we need to do is to go back to policy, as he suggested, policy guided by data. She talked about how government is preparing. I think education sector would be the busiest sector right now planning. There should be meetings of head teachers to share experiences. They feed into commissioners, commissioner for higher education, commissioner for primary education, and those other small things. Unfortunately, in Uganda, it is the other people who advise. You can imagine that the health task force is advising education on what to do. I thought the work of health task force is to deal with the COVID. it should be the education task force to be advising the president on what to do. Then the president would compare with what he has gotten from the health task force. Now, the health task, the COVID task force is headed by politicians, at the district by RDC, at the national level by a politician. So you don't expect these people to advise the president. So the president uses his opinion. In fact, he's the one advising them in most cases. So we can't move like that. Then, I think also you asked her about immunization. Immunization is the greatest thing that we would pray that happens. And like her, I want to tell people to leave this crap of saying that immunization is going to kill us. Uganda is the only country, because I don't speak for other countries, where a person with 3 degrees, like myself, goes and reads something on social media. You know, social media is an open space. Everybody puts their information. So I normally imagine that information has been put there by a primary 6 kid. And a man with 3 degrees reads the thing and says, oh, I have read on social media that when they immunize you with the AstraZeneca, in 6 hours you die. Or where they have immunized you, when you put there a key, there is a magnet. A magnet. Now, this is a person who has a PhD in physics. He knows how magnetism is made and so on. How can a magnet be on a body of a human being? We really want to encourage people to read. You can read about these things. You can read about these. Don't base on social media information. I am not saying this. At my university, they look at me as a non-digital person. But for me, really, I cannot depend on Wikipedia to survive. Wikipedia. This man, they're even looking for him to arrest him because he's a declared liar. A declared liar, the head of Wikipedia. US want to arrest him. He's a declared liar. So I can't read something from Wikipedia. Why don't you go to World Health Organization, Google, and read about these vaccines? There is information there. Of course, they show you the advantages and the disadvantages. Then you weigh, as a person who is clever, you weigh and say, I think immunization. For me, I've finished my immunization, 2 shots. So we thought, I think this immunization, if we are waiting for immunization, then some of our children who are in top class will go to school when they have beards. So my suggestion is that we can do them concurrently. In fact, it would be easier to immunize children when they are at school than when they are not at school. So let them first organize for ways of children going back to school as they look for the vaccine. When the vaccines come, it is easier to immunize them at school. I remember in 1993 when we had an outbreak of meningitis, we got shots from school. We were immunized from our schools, and that's why we're here. So I want to suggest that we can do them concurrently. I want to beg the president to drop his idea of waiting for vaccination first to take place of all school-going children and their teachers. They could do it concurrently. The children first go to school in an organized way. As the vaccines come, they become the first priority, because now I think the health officers should be almost done. So they should be the second priority, and it would be easier to immunize them when they're at school, so that schools open.
Doctor, one question. Doctor, teachers were among the first categories who were given priority to take immunization. Do you think they have taken the immunization, or they are also part of the vaccine hesitancy group?
Two ways. There are those who are immunized, like myself. Because for me, really, I cannot start arguing with science. I got immunized. There are those who wanted to be immunized, but they don't have the vaccine. The vaccine has not reached them. Because when they brought this vaccine, if anyone has gone to the vaccination center, although the policy is that they're immunizing a certain category of people, but when you go to the immunization center, is laissez-faire. The one who comes is the one who is immunized. So I doubt even whether they have clear data of what they are doing. But there is another category of teachers who are these Ugandans who need first to see what is happening before they can immunize themselves. And unfortunately, they are the majority, especially at primary. And because you see, teachers are so many down there. But the vaccine have been targeting many people in town here. So majority of the teachers down there are not immunized. That's why I'm proposing they should first be taken to school, so that they come in the morning, they find a person who is immunizing, he's there, he says, all teachers line up and get immunized. So that one who does not want to be immunized should get out of our schools.
Thank you very much, Dr. and Sarah. Now, you see, Dr. Musinguzi, you realize when Sarah and Dr. Ojambo are saying, speaking, you realize that some of these that they are bringing out are really black and white issues that any layman can understand. Is it that the problem is with the planners? Is it that our sector doesn't have planners, or it is the issue of leadership, really?
If I was to go by your options, of course, I would say it is the problem of leadership, because planning would also come under leadership. With regard to vaccination, the government can be commended that at the beginning of the first phase of vaccination, priority was given to high-risk people, the health workers, the teachers, and such kinds of categories. But as Sarah has mentioned, there was a lot of hesitancy. There was a lot of, campaign against vaccination. And unfortunately, even teachers were part of the group. We cannot maybe blame them, because there was a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of negative information, and there was a lot of fear. But in the second wave, when people started dying, that attitude changed almost fundamentally. And people are now running for vaccination. But again, when these previous vaccinations were brought, some of us had received vaccinations from mission hospitals, like Nkozi, like Rubaga, like Mengo. By this time, they excluded them. And they started saying, go to government health centers. I went to a government health center for my second dose, and they said, no, the vaccines ended on to the first 2 days. Now it does not exist. I moved to about 3 places until I got my second dose. And the question was, are these vaccinations not existing? Are they ending so quickly because of the demand? But as he said, you remember that some people, while people were prioritized, now other people are coming to get the vaccines. And there were already complaints.
Because the ones who were prioritized,
Yes.
did not take the chance.
I understand. I understand.
I think that is a problem for our country.
Yes, that is.
I have lived in Kenya. I have lived in Tanzania. In Uganda, I don't know whether people have lost trust in their government. In Kenya, in Tanzania, when something is a government and you're a government civil servant, there is no way you can say no to it.
Doctor,
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm going to. When the schools, in the current lockdown, the president communicated clearly the schools will remain closed until a significant number of people have been vaccinated. It makes scientific sense. But in terms of policy and planning, it is as empty as it is stated. How many teachers do we have in primary school, both public and private? How many teachers do we have in secondary school, both public and private, and even at the university? First, get the statistics. When are you getting the vaccines to do the vaccination for those categories? And as he's saying, for me, people, Sarah is a human rights person, but I would even push for a policy that makes it mandatory for the teachers to vaccinate.
No, for the record, I know I am a human rights activist. But for the record and for avoidance of doubt, I am in favor of two things. If you don't want to vaccinate, employ yourself. Two, if you don't want to vaccinate and there is a third wave here, the unvaccinated should be locked at home.
Okay, thank you so much. That is clear, because that has been the argument of some people, that you do not force people to vaccinate. But we've known it is a health threat. And yes, it's an option. If you feel you do not want to vaccinate, then do not get exposed to our children. Get out of service. As simple as that. Now, if we see the movement from the voluntary to the required vaccination, then the government should be able to tell us in the next 1 or 2 months, we've ordered for these vaccines, exactly. We shall, and the schools will be opening in November.
Let him make payment.
Then there we would say, okay, we are waiting with hope. But in a situation, by the way, I checked the statistics at the Ministry of Health. We have vaccinated 1.15 million people.
Yes,
in the whole 1 year.
People with second doses?
Yes.
350.
350.
Yes.
Now, by the time, as you said, we vaccinate all the primary school teachers, the recent donations were about 590 in total. And are they going to teachers? They are not going to teachers. So,
comes gets the vaccine.
Meaning, saying that schools will open until vaccination has been achieved, it is an indirect way of saying education has been suspended for now until that time when it is possible for it to open. And we are saying that is the catastrophe that is in our midst. Going forward, the Ministry of Education must wake up from the sleep. They have relaxed too much. They have exposed their children to danger. Something must be done, and we open. If we are opening Chikubo, if we are opening international schools, where is the magic that our local schools cannot open?
Yeah, there is a corridor talk that there is a master plan out for school reopening. Have you got a chance to see it? Maybe because you're into the education sector.
I'm hearing it from you.
Why should it be corridor talk? And maybe for the record, I think it's important to note that we do not have a comprehensive national COVID response plan as a country. We do not have. All we can do is rock LODs on the street, security, make supplementary budgets, State House and Defense as if we are under war. This is a health pandemic. It is not a security pandemic.
And I think if there is anything to call a plan, it is the stakeholders who should generate that plan. Because if they are talking about a plan and have not had it, then there is a very, very big problem. Because I am in the education sector. I do both teaching and administration. I govern about 2,700 students. So if I have not been consulted, really there is no plan. I don't think there is a plan. And if there is a plan, it's a bad plan. It's a bad plan.
So, Sarah, from what we've been discussing, and of course from what the Minister of Finance said about the private schools, what is their fate?
I had an opportunity of listening to the acting Secretary to Treasury on a program on one of the radios. He said they have advised the government to open all sectors. And they have also advised on how each sector can open as finance, including schools. Whether the people they are advising are listening is another matter. I heard the unfortunate comments of the Minister of Finance telling schools to sell their property, private schools, and stop bothering government. Very unfortunate.
That man is a comedian.
He has joined the queue that the late Chibirige left behind when he told the people to eat monkeys. And very unfortunate. But again, I don't want to, I don't know. There is a big disconnect between some of the political leaders and the people. But also that was a statement of arrogance. A very irresponsible statement. Because private sector subsidize government in educating the people. Private sector in Uganda are shouldering the budget of educating people more than the government institutions because they are more. So you do not tell people like that amidst the pandemic. If schools were never closed, has the minister ever seen such a request from private education operators? I think he needs to withdraw that statement. It's very unfortunate, very careless, very irresponsible. He should withdraw it.
Instead, I think government should be very apologetic to private institutions because, as Sarah said, they shoulder the burden of education more than 60% in Uganda. If you go and tally the students who are passing through private institutions vis-a-vis the ones who are passing through public institutions, it is not balanced. One time I was asking somebody why Harvard University gets government grants in the United States, because Harvard is not a state university. Harvard is a private university, which was started by the church long ago. But Harvard, the U.S. realized that it's one of the universities that has influenced its economy, its administration, and so on. So they give it money. That's why I didn't agree with the people who were one time quarreling when they gave Kampala International University some buses and some what. The only thing I would not agree, there should be a policy of helping all of them. Yes. In fact, all these Nkozi, UCU should be subsidized by government in one way or the other because they are doing a job that government was supposed to do. One time I was speaking to his, Honorable Muyingo and told him that these private institutions like your school and other these schools should be government entities benefiting from some government grant of some sort. And he was saying, no, want to encourage privatization. I said, but maybe you don't understand what privatization is. So really, my view is that when you look at the comment that was made by the minister, that is not the first. He has made very many ministerial statements. For example, for those of you who are alive, when they brought OTT tax and they asked him why he brought the tax, he said, I have never brought that tax. What is it, by the way? And his signature was on the document. The man showed, but you signed here. Said, me? I signed? No, take away that stupid thing. But it was later implemented, and we paid for a whole year. Now, for me, I was wondering, we are paying a tax that a minister denied, and we have paid for a whole year. Either he's there as a figurehead, the people sign for him and he doesn't know, or he is in a wrong place. For me, I think private institutions government owes private institutions a big apology. But we should not only stop at the apology, at apologizing. The way we are giving money to SMEs, because I saw yesterday the junior minister of finance declaring the amounts that have been passed to be given to small, medium enterprises. They are giving money to musicians. I hear these days that road to Gulu is very, very busy. The money guru is actually in, and people are giving money to Chameleon, to Grasshopper, to those songs of the names of those singers. They are getting money. I think, without joking, the Minister of Finance should be thinking on how they are going to rejuvenate the education sector in total. The education sector, even the government schools. For those who may not be aware, those government schools had reached a time when they are running their schools using PTA funds. That's why they admit students on the back door. Nabisunsa, what? If you go and see how many students were given by Minister of Education to Nabisunsa, and the ones they admitted on their own, the ones they admitted on their own are more than the other ones. Now they are not there. So it means they are not slashing, they are not paying electricity bills and so many of those things. They need some money to rejuvenate them so that they can begin. Two, as she suggested and he also added, when we start, we are not going to start as usual. People have been calling this new normal. I don't know why Ugandans don't want to say the right thing. We don't have anything as a new normal. Abnormal. We are in an abnormal situation. So in this abnormal situation, we would need, the students are not going to sleep the way they were sleeping. They are not going to eat the way they were eating. And so many other things. They must have masks throughout. So you need to plan for both of them. To help the other ones deal with the costs, daily costs, which have been affecting them. But private schools, look at how much even they are owed if they are in the bank, and see how they can be helped in a short run, medium term, and long run. For example, if the government stands in as a guarantor to private banks on how these loans are going to be paid, it's not a bad thing. So I think the likes of the minister need to go back to profession, and do their work, and instead be now meeting these private schools, stakeholders, and listening from them and see how they can help them. But there is now the real people. I think the citizens of this country need to rebuke these people. You remember when Jesus was teaching, and certain times a disciple would run to him. And I found people preaching about the gospel. Jesus would rebuke them, say, what's wrong with you? Are they preaching the gospel? If they are for us, if they are with us, they are for us. So leave them. So we need to rebuke these ministers when they say silly things. We say, minister, please, that one. For example, how many people, private school, they have an association. They should demand that this man resigns. Why should he be in office to say silly things? If we want to listen to silly things, we shall go to theater. Theater, you go there prepared to listen to silly things. We are prepared to listen to serious people who are saying serious things for our country, because this country is a great country. You should have heard the other man who was announcing when Kiptegei was winning the medal. That man should be brought here and given money to sell our country. He said this man comes from Uganda, a good country of humble people, with good juice, good milk. I looked at that man, and he was white, speaking about my country. I felt so good. When the man won the gold medal, he went and took a picture with him, and he put on Ugandan jersey, a white man. These ones of ours are only milking our country. And so I really feel, and you saw people celebrating. They don't know how those young men, I do some more sports. I don't only stop at education. They don't know how those medals came. There are two white men who are behind those medals. There are two Dutch men who have been in Kapichorwa there, sponsoring. They are the ones who buy tickets. They give them food. They give them everything. They buy for them food supplements, for everything. Now I saw yesterday, oh my God, our people are really, they are thugs.
We are almost winding up, and I think this should be our parting shots. What is the way forward? Now we need to discuss what is the way forward for both the students and the schools today going forward, and what should we be doing better?
Is that a concluding question?
Yeah, we need to yes, as we do our final shots on that.
Yes, I think we all agree schools must open. We use standard operating procedures to ensure that we minimize the risk. The unfortunate thing, when people talk about supporting schools to open, they think we are reckless, we do not value life. No, as we've said, there is enough evidence that we can progress even where there is COVID. The second thing is what we started with. Online education has its own challenges, but it is an option that needs to be prioritized and supported. Fortunately, as he mentioned, by early 2000, Cape Town was already providing online education, and it was very effective. When it is properly planned and properly facilitated with the structures, it is going to work and solve some of these challenges. But as we are talking about, you are saying schools go online, and you are introducing a tax on data. This is what we're asking. Where is the Ministry of Education? If there is
and you are not laying cables to enable accessibility of internet.
Yeah. So again, we need to see, as she said, coordinated planning across different sectors. We hear of interministerial working groups and committees. The Minister of Education should be sitting with the Minister of Finance or Minister of Education, putting in place packages for universities, for schools, on how to get either free data or highly subsidized data which is not taxed. We need to hear part of the budgeting, as she said, going into internet infrastructure, helping schools acquire computers, helping, funding, working with telecom companies to provide data. That is the direction we should be taking. You do not simply say as a ministry, okay, some schools can be teaching online, and it stops there. And some people tend to think that online education is cheap because, one is at home and another one is speaking on their computers. It is very expensive because it takes a lot to prepare and to make it functional, as he was talking about. Having softwares, having the computers, having the licenses for the service providers, and doing all that. Even the creation of the digital content. He will want to teach with videos, with audios, with these things. He will have to take a lot of more time than he was taking in a normal class to prepare for an online class for it to be more effective. You have to do monitoring, follow students, and do all that thing. So this is the direction we should be seeing what is the Ministry of Education and the government doing to create the capacity for the schools to go online.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and thank you very much for those words. Sarah, I need to get to you.
No, I think in addition to, I wish to associate myself with the comments by Dr. Musinguzi, but in addition to that, we have 8.3 million people living in poverty. COVID pandemic is going to amplify our inequality challenges as a country. The poorer, the marginalized, other than increasing in numbers, their situation is getting worse every day. So in these families of 8.3 million people, are there learners? Do they have capacity to go online? And as you make such pronouncements as a Minister of Education, are you thinking about these people? Even away from the people in the poverty line, the lower middle income families, who are also equally the same number, they have competing priorities. As people struggle to find food, 1 meal a day, are they going to buy gadgets for the runners? Are they going to spend 50,000 per week on internet? And the schools where they take their children, do the teachers have the gadgets? Do they have internet? So whom are you making a policy for? Are you making a policy for the haves and leaving behind the have-not? And what kind of leadership is that? In my children's school, which is among the best government schools that this country has, they have children who cannot get online. They have children who cannot get online. They have failed to get online. They don't have capacity.
No, I can give you an example.
So what did you do?
In the school where my daughter studies, she was shocked. When they reached school, they had been doing some work online. So one of their colleagues from Soroti came back to school and they said, for you, what have you been doing? He said, nothing. They failed to reach her. Even on phone or what, they could not reach her.
So as you make such policies, are you considering about 16 million families in this country that have no capacity to study online? Are you considering the majority of government schools who study under trees, the UPE schools, as you make such pronouncements that we see who are almost washed away by rain, do they have capacity to study online? So whom are you making such policies for? Otherwise, either we have a Marie Antoinette situation in this country, or we have completely no leadership in the education sector.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Doctor,
I think my colleague
she has hinted on Marie Antoinette, and I remembered your history.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette was one time asked that people don't have what to eat. They don't have bread. So she said that if you don't have bread, go and eat cakes. And the people got annoyed. That's why they stormed the Bastille. Said, now if this is the case, let's storm the Bastille. Should Ugandans also storm the Bastille? I don't know. But I think we have been discussing here, and anybody who has been listening to us may have lost hope in their country. I want to raise your hope and say that the baton is in our hands. Parents need to get more responsible, more than just being ready to go and pay tuition. They need to get to know what happens in their country. Parents who have at least reached senior 6 should understand the education policy and understand the human rights, at least read the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4 of the Constitution, and understand it. I think that's where hope is. If we start demanding, I like Boda Boda in this country. They are the most informed characters you can find. The president on all occasions has banished them, but they have rejected. For those who are in Kampala, Boda Boda was as usual. They were carrying people, sometimes even 3 of them, and passing police. I don't know what they were doing. We want a society like that, a society that is resilient to issues. They knew how difficult it was. By the way, I heard at first Boda Boda was not one of the groups they were going to open. But somebody showed the president a picture of Boda Bodas parked at electoral commission there. And when the president looked at it, he said, not saying that Boda Boda don't open, I will be deceiving the country. Let them open. But carry 1 passenger, they are carrying 7. So I think parents, we have a role. We have a role to play. And the parents are the ministers, parents are the MPs, parents are the big people here. Because we don't teach children from Congo or wherever. The parents are here. So we need to put pressure to the powers that be to make sure that schools are opened. 2, we need a planned opening. This time we shouldn't open the way we have been opening. A plan backed with the financial ability. A plan, because this country has money. We have freezed a lot of things which were taking our money. Let that money go into education and we open. We need the schools or the school system to work with the health system. We need to make sure that when the children go back to school, they are monitored. And we need to make sure that we change the way we have been doing things. We can no longer go back to school and think that in this short time we can teach 18 topics. No. It is high time that now even in schools, in universities, where you were teaching 18, let's pick the fundamental 9. Because in everything that we teach, there is always the fundamental. For me, what I teach, we normally deal with theory first. Once people understand the theory, they will do the practice. So we can go back to school instead of having a term of 4 months. We can have a term of 2 months of congested work where we are only teaching the most important things. We examine students and they move on until when we shall normalize. When we normalize, it's like when during famine, you don't eat a full meal. You eat to live. So let's also study to live. Lastly, we need to make sure that as we open for COVID, we start planning for the future. Because the education sector has been disabled, it needs a rebranding. Government needs to see how they can support private institutions. Governments need to see how they can deal with the poor people. It's not only creating for them infrastructure, but you should also do a number of things so that we have a 5-year program, a 10-year program, a 20-year program. Given the leadership we have, some people normally don't want to plan for 20 years because they know they will not be there. But good countries which have succeeded are countries where people do something for the benefit of other people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Robert. Thank you very much, Dr. Denis. And thank you very much, of course, Council Sarah, our regular panelists here. Thank you very much for being with me today and honoring my invitation. But also, thank you very much, our viewers out there that have been following the conversation. Like our panelists have said, and of course, Dr. Robert, please don't lose hope. We just need to wake up and also play our role. We have very many associations there, the lecturers, the students' bodies, you know, the parents. Please, you need to wake up. You need to insert some little force. Not defiantly, I don't know, but we can use all the forces that we think we can apply to ensure that at least this sector is up and running. And of course, follow our conversation on Twitter. That's where we are. Hashtag #ChatShowUG. And also, we are live on YouTube, where we've been throughout. Kindly like and subscribe on the channel there. On our Facebook, we are there live and streaming live. Be part of this conversation every Friday. Be part of this conversation. Place your comments there and see how we can push the country forward. I've been Masesa Demiano, your host. We meet next Friday.